My brother's fiancée looked us in the eye and gave the ultimatum. It is me or the dog. We chose the dog. And for that sin, she decided to execute my best friend with a pound of dark chocolate while pretending to be the victim. I am sitting here shaking, covered in dried saliva and tears, while my brother threatens to have me arrested for assaulting a pregnant woman. But the sickest part is that there is no baby. The woman inside my house, the woman my family is currently comforting, is wearing a $40 foam belly she bought online to manipulate my grieving mother into selling our home. Her name is not Mia. She is a wanted criminal named Tia who owes $50,000 to a loan shark. And she has successfully turned my entire family against me. I have the documents in my hands right now that prove she is a fraud. But if I walk back through those doors, I destroy my brother's happiness forever. How do you save people who are convinced you are the villain? Do I let her take everything, or do I destroy my family to save a dog? Please, I feel like I am losing my mind here. What am I supposed to do? My name is Hope Miller. I am 18 years old. I should be worrying about college applications, scrolling through TikTok in my dorm room, or arguing with my mother about my curfew. Instead, I am sitting on a plastic orange chair in a room that smells like bleach, instant coffee, and bad decisions. There is dried blood under my fingernails. It is not my blood. It belongs to the only living thing in my house that ever loved me unconditionally. I live, or used to live, I suppose, in one of those sprawling, manicured suburbs in Connecticut where the grass is legally required by the homeowners association to be a specific shade of green. We have a 3-car garage, a kitchen island made of imported marble that costs more than a mid-size sedan, and a family that has been slowly rotting from the inside out since my father died of a heart attack 3 years ago. My current reality is a blur of fluorescent lights and hushed whispers from the officers standing by the vending machine. They look at me with that mix of pity and suspicion reserved for privileged kids who finally broke. But to understand why I am sitting here, shaking, waiting to find out if I am going to be charged with assault, you have to go back to the dinner, the night the parasite attached itself to us. It was 3 months ago, a Tuesday. The house was quiet, the kind of heavy, expensive silence that you only find in homes where people avoid each other. I was in the living room, sitting on the floor with Mia. She is, or she was, an 8-year-old golden retriever. My dad bought her when I was 15, right before he got sick. She was the last happy memory we had. She had a coat the color of burnt sugar and eyes that seemed to hold more empathy than my entire immediate family combined. Lucas is bringing her tonight, my mother, Evelyn, said, fluttering into the room. She was adjusting a vase of hydrangeas for the 3rd time. My mother is a woman who believes that if the table setting is perfect enough, nobody will notice her son is a spineless coward. Great, I muttered, scratching Mia behind the ears. Another one of Lucas's charity cases? Be nice. Hope, Mom warned, though her voice lacked any real authority. He says this one is different. He says she is. Saoyuting 2 is greater than the 1. Lucas, my 26-year-old brother, falls in love the way toddlers run down hills, fast, recklessly, and usually ending in a faceplant. He works at the family real estate firm, a job he got because of his last name, not his competence. He is handsome in a generic, catalog model sort of way, which makes him a prime target for a specific type of predator. At 7 o'clock sharp, the front door opened. Mom? Hope? We are here. Lucas's voice cracked slightly. He was nervous. I stood up, wiping dog hair off my jeans. Mia, sensing the arrival of her favorite human, trotted to the door, her tail thumping a rhythmic beat against the hardwood floor. And then I saw her. She was standing in the foyer, clutching Lucas's arm with a grip that looked affectionate but tightened like a blood pressure cuff. She was petite, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair and the kind of innocent, doe-eyed face that usually hides a bear trap. She wore a cashmere sweater that probably cost $600 and a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. Everyone, Lucas beamed, looking like he had just won the lottery. This is Mia. Mia Vance. I froze. My mother froze. Even the dog stopped wagging her tail for a second, sensing the shift in the air. Mia? Mom asked, blinking. Oh, what a... Saoting 2 hash is greater than lovely coincidence. The woman laughed. It was a light, tinkling sound, like breaking glass. I know, right? Lucas told me about the family dog. It is so funny. She looked down at my dog. Mia, being the gentle soul she was, approached the woman to sniff her hand. Mia Vance recoiled. It was subtle, a micro-expression of disgust that vanished as quickly as it appeared. But I saw it. She pulled her expensive beige purse away from the dog's wet nose. Down. Mia, I said sharply, grabbing the dog's collar. Hi, I said to the woman, not offering a handshake. I am Hope, and yes, this is the original Mia. You are standing in her territory. I thought, do not forget that. We moved to the dining room. The dinner was excruciating. Mia Vance spent 45 minutes talking about her nonprofit work, which seemed to consist entirely of organizing gala dinners for people who like to hear themselves talk. She complimented my mother on the china, complimented Lucas on his tie, and ignored me completely. It was during the dessert course, a raspberry tart my mother had bought from the French bakery across town, that the first red flag did not just wave. It slapped me in the face. So, Mia Vance said, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin, I have been thinking, it is going to be so confusing. Is it not? Having 2 Mias in the house? Lucas chuckled nervously. We will figure it out. Babe, we can call you Saoting 2 hash is greater than I do not know. Human Mia. He meant it as a joke. She did not laugh. She placed her fork down. The metal clinked loudly against the china. She turned her body toward my mother, completely bypassing me. Evelyn, she said, her voice dripping with respectful sweetness. I was thinking, for the sake of clarity, Saoting 2 hash is greater than, and honestly, for the sake of dignity, Saoting 2 hash is greater than. Maybe we could give the dog a nickname or a new name entirely. My mother blinked, caught off guard. Oh, well, she has been Mia for 8 years. Dear, she knows her name. I know. Mia Vance smiled, a tight, pained expression. But imagine when we get married. Imagine I am in the other room and Lucas calls out Mia. Come here, and the dog comes running. It just feels Saoting 2 hash is greater than a little dehumanizing. Does it not? To share a name with an animal. I felt the heat rising up my neck. Dehumanizing? I repeated. She is a family member. You are a guest. If anyone is changing their name, it should not be the dog. Hope? Lucas snapped. Do not be rude. Mia Vance put a hand on Lucas's arm. Silencing him, she looked at me. And for the first time, the mask slipped. Her eyes were cold, calculating, and empty. I understand you are attached to the pet, Hope, she said softly, treating me like a tantrum-throwing toddler. But I am talking about psychological boundaries. It is actually a trigger for me, being equated to a beast. It is very hard on my mental health. She paused, then tilted her head. I had a suggestion. Actually, what about Sao Tsing Hao Ling Tu Tia? It sounds like Mia, so the dog will not be too confused. But it is different enough that I will not feel insulted in my own future home. Tia? I asked, staring at her. You want to rename my dead father's dog, Sao Tsing Hao Ling, to Tia. It is just a letter. Hope, Lucas said, his voice pleading. It is not a big deal. Why do you have to be so difficult? Because she is testing us. I screamed internally. She does not care about the name. She wants to see if you will jump when she snaps her fingers. I am not calling the dog Tia, I said, standing up. My chair scraped violently against the floor. Her name is Mia. It was Dad's favorite name. If you have a complex about sharing a name with a golden retriever, maybe you should see a therapist instead of asking us to rewrite our history. Hope? My mother gasped. Mia Vance's lower lip trembled. Tears, seemingly on command, pooled in her eyes. She looked at Lucas, helpless and wounded. Sao Tsing Hao Ling. 2 is greater than. I just wanted to feel welcome. Lucas, I did not know your sister was so. Sao Tsing Hao Ling. 2 est supérieur à hostile. She grabbed her purse and stood up. Maybe I should go. I feel very unsafe right now. No. Wait. Babe. Lucas scrambled up, knocking over his wine glass. Red wine bled across the white tablecloth, staining it like a fresh wound. He glared at me with genuine hatred. Look what you did. Are you happy now? He ran after her. I heard the front door slam. My mother sat there, staring at the stained tablecloth, her hands shaking. Why? Hope? Why could you not just... Sao Tsing Hao Ling, 2 est supérieur à compromise? I looked down at the dog. Mia was under the table, resting her head on my feet, sensing the distress. It is not about the name. Mom, I whispered, though I knew she would not understand. She did not want a compromise. She wanted a surrender. I did not know it then, but that spilled wine was the least of the blood that would be shed in our house. That was the moment the war started. And as I sit here now, in this police station, staring at my trembling hands, I realize that was the last quiet dinner we ever had. The stain on the tablecloth did not come out. My mother scrubbed at it with a frantic energy, her knuckles turning white as she attacked the crimson fibers with a sponge and club soda. It was a futile effort. The wine had soaked deep into the fabric, leaving a jagged, ugly mark that looked disturbingly like a fresh bruise. I stood by the kitchen island, watching her. The house was silent again, but the air felt heavy, pressurized, like the sky right before a tornado touches down. Mia, the dog, was pacing nervously between the dining room and the kitchen, her nails clicking a staccato rhythm on the hardwood. She knew something was wrong. Dogs always know. They absorb the tension we try to hide, soaking it up until they are just as anxious as we are. 20 minutes passed before the front door opened again. Lucas walked in alone. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his hair disheveled as if he had run his hands through it a dozen times. But it was his eyes that terrified me. They were not angry. Anger I could handle. Anger was hot and fast, and burned itself out. His eyes were cold, filled with a pious, self-righteous disappointment that made my stomach turn. He looked like a man who had just been shown the light and was now pitying the rest of us for living in darkness. He walked into the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water from the fridge dispenser. The hum of the machine was the only sound in the room. My mother stopped scrubbing. She looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. "Is she okay?" Mom asked, her voice trembling. "Did you take her home?" Lucas took a long sip of water before setting the glass down on the counter with a deliberate thud. "She is in the car," he said quietly. "She can barely breathe. She is having a panic attack." Mom, a full-blown anxiety episode because she does not feel safe in this house. I let out a harsh, incredulous laugh. I could not help it. The absurdity of the statement felt like a physical slap. "Safe?" I repeated, stepping forward. "Because of a dog?" "Lucas, listen to yourself. You are talking about a woman who just asked us to rename a living creature because it hurts her ego. That is not a panic attack. That is a temper tantrum wrapped in designer clothing." Lucas spun around to face me. His jaw was clenched tight. "Stop it. Hope, just stop. You have no idea what you are talking about. You are projecting your own insecurities onto her." I blinked. Projecting? Insecurities? These were not words Lucas used. My brother was a guy who watched football and communicated mostly in grunts and emojis. He did not speak the language of therapy. He was parroting someone else. "Mia has trauma," Lucas continued, his voice taking on a preaching tone. "She has past experiences where she was devalued and stripped of her identity. When you refused to accommodate her request, you were invalidating her existence. You triggered a deep-seated emotional response. It is not about the dog. It is about boundaries, and you crossed them." I looked at my mother, waiting for her to point out how insane this sounded. But Evelyn Miller was a woman who had spent 30 years smoothing over cracks to present a perfect facade. She was not a fighter. She was a peacekeeper. Even if the peace was a lie, maybe we could. "Saoting Holing. Tuhash is greater than just call the dog Mimi?" Mom suggested weakly, wringing her hands in the dish towel. "Or puppy? Just when she is around." "Mom, no," I said, feeling a surge of betrayal. "See?" Lucas pointed a finger at me. "Mom is willing to compromise. Mom cares about my happiness. Why are you so toxic? Hope? Why do you have to make everything about you?" He looked down at the dog, who had trotted over to him, wagging her tail. Hoping for a pat, Lucas stared at the animal, the dog he had helped pick out from the breeder 8 years ago. With a strange detachment, he did not reach down. He did not scratch her ears. He stepped back, as if touching her would contaminate him. "I need you to fix this." "Hope," Lucas said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I am going to go back out to the car and try to calm her down. But I am telling you right now, if you sabotage this relationship for me, I will never forgive you. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me. She sees me. She understands my potential." He turned and walked out. The silence he left behind was worse than the shouting. I went to my room and slammed the door. My sanctuary. The walls were covered in posters of indie bands and collages I had made. A chaotic contrast to the sterile beige of the rest of the house. I threw myself onto my bed, burying my face in the pillow, screaming silently into the cotton. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I rolled over and grabbed it, expecting a text from my best friend, Sarah, but the number on the screen was unknown. I slid my thumb across the glass to open the message. "Hi, Hope. This is Mia Vance. Lucas gave me your number. I just wanted to reach out and say that I forgive you. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I read it again. I forgive you. Not I am sorry for causing a scene. Not let us start over. But I forgive you. The text bubble expanded as she typed more. I know 18 is a difficult age. Hormones and high school drama can make us lash out at people who are just trying to help. I know you are very protective of your brother and your little world, and change is scary, but I want us to be sisters. I am willing to put your outburst behind us if you can just show me a little respect. We are going to be family. After all, sleep tight. I felt a cold chill slide down my spine. It was a master class in gaslighting. In 2 paragraphs, she had reduced my legitimate anger to teenage hormones, painted herself as the benevolent victim, and established dominance by implying that her presence in the family was already a guaranteed fact. She was not asking for permission. She was notifying me of her arrival. I did not reply. I threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the carpet and hit the wall with a dull thud. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and close again. Muffled voices drifted up through the floorboards. Lucas was back, and this time, he was not alone. I heard the click of heels on the hardwood. She had come inside. I stayed in my room, refusing to go down. I listened as they moved around the kitchen. I heard the kettle whistling. My mother was making tea. Of course she was. Tea fixed everything in Evelyn Miller's world. An hour later, there was a soft knock on my door. Hope? It was my mother. Go away, I said, staring at the ceiling. She opened the door anyway. She looked older than she had this morning. The lines around her mouth were deeper, etched with anxiety. She came in and sat on the edge of my bed. She smelled of lavender, laundry detergent, and defeat. She is staying the night in the guest room, Mom whispered. She was too upset to drive home. Fantastic. I deadpanned. I will lock my door. Hope, please. Mom, Sihith, smoothing the duvet cover with a trembling hand. Lucas is Soyu Jingho Ling. 2# is greater than he is so happy with her. You did not see them in the kitchen just now. She calms him down. She has this way of speaking. Soyu Jingho Ling. 2# is greater than she makes him feel important. You know your brother has always struggled with his confidence, and that gives her the right to dictate what we call our dog? I asked. Mom looked away, toward the window where the suburban streetlights cast long, orange shadows across the lawn. She gave him an ultimatum. Hope. I sat up, propping myself on my elbows. What? She told him. Soyu Jingho Ling. 2# is greater than Mom hesitated, her voice barely audible. She told him that for her mental health, she cannot be in an environment where she feels mocked. She said, Soyu Jingho Ling. 2# is greater than she said. It is her or the dog. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was the cliché from every bad movie. The line that no rational human being actually says. But here it was, hanging in the air of my bedroom like a guillotine blade. And, I asked, my voice tight, what did Lucas say? Mom turned back to me. Her eyes were wet. He said he loves her. Hope. He said we have to make sacrifices for family. She reached out and touched my hand. Her fingers were cold. She wants us to keep the dog in the garage when she is here. Mom said softly, just for now, until they figure things out, just to keep the peace. In the garage? I pulled my hand away. It is November. Mom, the garage is freezing. Mia is 8 years old. She has arthritis in her hips. You cannot put her on concrete floor in the middle of winter. It is insulated. Mom argued weakly, trying to convince herself more than me. And we can put a heater in there. It is just Sao Yu Jing Hao Ling. 2 hash is greater than temporary. I looked at my mother, this woman who used to run a charity for stray cats, who cried when Bambi's mother died. And I saw a stranger. I saw a woman so terrified of being alone, so terrified of losing her son, that she was willing to betray the most loyal soul in the house. Get out, I whispered. Sao Yu Jing Hao Ling. 2 hash is greater than hope. Sao Yu Jing Hao Ling. R. Jing Hao Da Yu. Get out, I shouted, grabbing a pillow and hurling it at the door. My mother stood up, looking wounded, and retreated into the hallway, closing the door softly behind her. I sat in the dark, listening to the house settle. I could hear the wind picking up outside, rattling the window pane. Downstairs, in the living room, I heard a laugh. It was her. It was that tinkling, breaking glass laugh. I got out of bed and crept to my door, opening it just a crack. The dog, Mia, was lying in the hallway, right outside my threshold. She had been banished from the downstairs area. She looked up at me with sad, confused eyes, resting her chin on her paws. I opened the door fully and patted the floor. Come here, is girl, I whispered. She got up stiffly and padded into my room. I shut the door and locked it. I dragged her heavy dog bed out of the closet and placed it right next to mine. I lay back down, reaching a hand over the edge of the mattress to bury my fingers in her soft fur. She let out a long, heavy sigh, the kind that vibrated through her ribs and into my hand. I promise, I whispered into the darkness, I will not let them take you. But as I closed my eyes, the text message burned in my mind. I forgive you. It was not a truce. It was a warning shot. The enemy was inside the gates, sleeping in the guest room down the hall, and she had already won the first battle. If a diamond ring is a promise, a pregnancy test is a fortress. It is the ultimate trump card, a biological shield that deflects all criticism, all suspicion, and all logic. 3 weeks after the dinner that ruined my life, Mia Vance played that card on the granite countertop of our kitchen island. It was a Sunday morning. The winter sun was streaming through the bay windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Dust that Mia Vance would soon hire a cleaning crew to eradicate because of her sensitive allergies. Lucas gathered us in the kitchen. He looked like he had not slept in days, but his eyes were manic, feverish, with a terrifying kind of joy. We have news, Lucas said, his voice cracking. Mia Vance stood next to him, wearing a white oversized sweater that swallowed her petite frame, making her look fragile, like a porcelain doll that might shatter if you raised your voice. She had a hand resting protectively over her completely flat stomach. We are pregnant, she whispered. My mother let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. She dropped the dish towel she was holding and rushed forward to embrace them. It was a scene straight out of a Hallmark movie, complete with tears, hugs, and promises of a bright future. I stood by the refrigerator, feeling the cold steel handle against my back. I felt nauseous. I looked at Mia Vance over my mother's trembling shoulder. She caught my eye. She did not smile. She just raised her eyebrows slightly, a look that said, "Checkmate." The dynamic of the house shifted instantly. Before, Mia Vance was just a girlfriend with annoying demands. Now, she was the carrier of the heir. She was the vessel of the future Miller bloodline. My mother desperate for a grandchild to fill the void my father left, became her willing servant. Mia Vance moved in 2 days later. She brought 5 suitcases, a collection of exotic houseplants, and an air of entitlement that was so thick you could practically choke on it. The first thing to go was the smell of the house. Our home had always smelled like old books, coffee, and dog shampoo. Within 48 hours, Mia Vance had plugged in synthetic lavender diffusers in every outlet. The house smelled chemical, sharp, and sterile. Then came the physical erasure. I came home from school on a Thursday to find a moving truck in the driveway. 2 men in blue jumpsuits were hauling my father's old leather armchair out the front door. It was a beaten-up recliner, cracked at the seams, shaped perfectly to his back. It was where he used to sit to read the newspaper, where he would fall asleep watching golf on Sundays with the dog curled up at his feet. "Stop," I screamed, dropping my backpack on the lawn. "What are you doing?" Mia Vance appeared in the doorway. She was wearing a silk robe, holding a cup of herbal tea. "Lower your voice. Hope," she said soothingly. "Stress is bad for the baby. That is Dad's chair." I choked out, pointing at the men. "Put it back." "Oh, honey, it is full of dust mites," she said, taking a sip of tea, "and dog dander. I cannot have that in the house with my condition. My obstetrician said I need a hypoallergenic environment." Lucas agreed. "We are replacing it with a nice, ergonomic chaise lounge." I looked at the chair, sitting forlornly on the asphalt. It looked like a corpse being carried away. "You are erasing him," I spat. "No, Hope," she said, her voice dropping to that patronizing teacher voice she used on me. "I am making room for the living. You should try it sometime." She turned and walked back inside, the silk of her robe swishing softly. I sat on the driveway next to the chair for an hour until the men loaded it onto the truck. I cut a small piece of leather from the underside of the armrest with my house key, just to have something of him left. But the worst part was the dog, with the pregnancy as her shield. Mia Vance's war against Mia, the dog, went nuclear. The garage was no longer a temporary solution. It became a permanent exile. Lucas installed a baby gate at the door leading to the house, a literal iron curtain separating the dog from her family. The dog spent her days pacing the cold concrete floor of the garage. I bought her a heated blanket with my allowance money, but I knew it was not enough. Every time I went out there to feed her or sit with her, she would look at the door with confused, soulful eyes, waiting for Lucas to come get her. He never did. He was too busy assembling cribs and painting the nursery a neutral shade of sage green that Mia Vance had selected. It was the second week of December when the cracks in her story began to show. I was homesick with a sinus infection. My head felt like it was stuffed with cotton, and I was moving through the house like a ghost. My mother had gone to a garden club luncheon, and Lucas was at work. I thought the house was empty. I went downstairs to get some tea. As I passed the hallway leading to my mother's home office, I heard a sound. It was the distinct rustle of paper. My mother was out. Lucas was out. I crept toward the office door, my socks silent on the rug. The door was ajar, just a sliver through the crack. I saw her. Mia Vance was sitting at my mother's heavy oak desk. She was not wearing her usual performance costume of comfortable maternity wear. She was dressed in sharp black slacks and a tight turtleneck. She was not looking at baby photos. She had a stack of file folders open in front of her. I recognized them immediately. The red accordion folder held the property deeds to the house and the vacation cabin in Maine. The blue binder was my father's life insurance trust and the investment portfolio my mother lived off of. Mia Vance was holding her phone over the documents. Click. She turned a page. Click. She zoomed in on a paragraph. Click. Her face was unrecognizable. Gone was the doe-eyed innocence. Her expression was focused, predatory, and efficient. She was not a nesting mother. She was an auditor. She was calculating net worth. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it would crack a bone. This was it. This was the proof. She was digging for gold. I pushed the door open. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice raspy from my sore throat, but loud enough to startle her. Mia Vance jumped. She fumbled with her phone, nearly dropping it onto the desk. For a split second, just a fraction of a heartbeat, I saw panic in her eyes. It was raw, ugly fear, but then the mask slid back into place. It was terrifying how fast it happened. Her shoulders slumped, her face softened, and she let out a breathless, relieved laugh. "Oh my God. Hope," she exclaimed, pressing a hand to her chest. "You scared the life out of me. I thought you were a burglar." I stepped into the room. I did not back down. "Why are you photographing my mother's financial records?" I asked, pointing at the open files. She looked down at the papers as if noticing them for the first time. Then she smiled. A nostalgic smile that made my skin crawl. "I was looking for photo albums," she said. "Lucas told me Evelyn keeps the baby pictures in this cabinet. I wanted to surprise him by framing a picture of him as a baby for the nursery. You know, to connect the generations." She gestured to the open drawer. There were indeed photo albums in there, buried under the financial files. "So you decided to read the property deed instead?" I challenged her. "And the life insurance trust?" she said, closing the red folder with a dismissive flip of her hand. "I was just moving them to get to the albums." Hope, and honestly, I was curious. Lucas mentions the cabin in Maine all the time. I just wanted to see where it was. "Is that a crime? To be interested in the family legacy my child is going to inherit?" She stood up, smoothing down her shirt. She walked around the desk, closing the distance between us. She stopped inches from me. I could smell her perfume, something expensive and cloying that smelled like vanilla and ambition. "You are very paranoid, Hope," she said softly. "It is sad. Really, you are so consumed by jealousy that you see enemies everywhere." "I am not jealous," I said, my hands balling into fists. "I am observant. You are not looking for baby pictures. You are looking for a payday." Her smile vanished. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that was barely audible, but cut through the air like a razor blade. "You should be careful, Hope. Stress is bad for the baby, and stress is bad for your mother. If you go running to her with these wild accusations, telling her that her daughter is spying on her pregnant daughter-in-law, Sao Yu Ting Ha Ling, Tuhash, is greater than well, who do you think she is going to believe? The bitter teenager who hates change? Or the woman carrying her grandbaby?" She reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I flinched away, but she was too fast. Her fingers lingered on my cheek for a second, cold and dry. "Do not make this harder than it has to be," she said. "I am not going anywhere. This is my house now too." She picked up her phone, slid it into her pocket, and walked past me out of the room. I stood there in the silence of the office, staring at the closed files. My legs felt weak, I sank into my father's old desk chair, the one she had not managed to throw out yet because it was too heavy for her to move alone. I opened the red folder, the deed to the house. It was just paper, but in her hands, it was a weapon. I realized then that I had been fighting the wrong war. I thought this was about a dog. I thought she just hated Mia, the golden retriever, because of the name. But I was wrong. The dog was just an obstacle. The dog was a sentry, a guardian of the house. And Mia Vance needed to remove the guardian before she could sack the castle. She was not just entitled, she was hungry. And she had just calculated exactly how much meat was on the bone of this family. I pulled out my own phone. My hands were shaking so badly I mistyped my password twice. I needed to tell someone. But who? Lucas was brainwashed. Mom was desperate. I opened the Google search bar. I typed in a name I had seen on a piece of junk mail sitting on the corner of the desk. A letter addressed to her that she must have forgotten to throw away. It was a letter from a collection agency in Nevada. Saouding Howling. De dièse est supérieur à Mia Vance. Nothing came up except her LinkedIn profile, full of buzzwords and exaggerated job titles. I tried a different combination. I remembered the name she had mocked, the name she had tried to force on my dog. Saouding Howling. De dièse est supérieur à Tia Vance. Saouding Howling. 2 hashes greater than I hit search. The internet connection in the office was slow. The little loading circle spun round and round, mocking me. Finally, the results populated. Most were irrelevant. A Tia Vance, who was a dentist in Ohio. A Tia Vance, who ran a bakery in Florida. But then, on the second page of results, I found a link to a local newspaper archive from a small town in Nevada. The headline was 3 years old. A local woman charged in check fraud scheme and animal cruelty case. I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly. There was no photo, just text. The article detailed a woman named Tia Vance, 25 years old at the time, who had been arrested for writing bad checks to a veterinary clinic and subsequently abandoning a sick cat in a dumpster behind the building when she could not pay the bill. I stared at the screen. The age matched. The location matched the collection agency letter. And the cruelty, Saouding Howling. 2 hashes greater than the cruelty matched the coldness I saw in her eyes when she looked at Mia. I heard footsteps coming down the hall. I quickly closed the tab and shoved my phone into my pocket. Mia Vance appeared in the doorway again. She was holding a plate of sliced apples. I cut some fruit, she said cheerfully, as if the conversation 5 minutes ago had never happened. Do you want some? Vitamin C is good for your cold. No, I whispered. Suit yourself, she said, taking a bite of an apple with a loud, crisp crunch. By the way, Lucas is coming home early. We are going to look at nurseries. You should rest. You look terrible. She walked away, humming a lullaby. I sat there, feeling the weight of the secret I had just uncovered. It was not enough. A name and an old article without a photo. She would talk her way out of it. She would say it was a different Tia Vance. She would say I was making it up. I needed more. I needed hard proof. But I knew one thing for certain now. The monster in our house was real, and she had already started feeding. The silence in our house was no longer peaceful. It was a loaded weapon. After my discovery in the office, I felt like I was walking on a frozen lake that was cracking beneath my feet with every step. I knew what I had seen. I knew about the red folder, the collection agency letter, and the article from Nevada. But knowledge without hard evidence is just paranoia. And in the court of Lucas Miller, I was already the losing defendant. I tried to tell him that evening. It was 7 o'clock. My mother was in the living room knitting a yellow blanket for the baby that did not exist yet. Or, at least, not in the way she thought. Mia Vance was taking a bath, filling the upstairs hallway with the scent of synthetic lavender. Lucas was in the kitchen, staring at his phone. "Lucas," I said, keeping my voice low. "We need to talk." He did not look up. If this is about the dog sleeping in the mudroom, the answer is no. Hope, Mia does not feel safe. "It is not about the dog," I said, pressing my palms against the cold granite counter to steady my shaking hands. "It is about her. I saw her in Mom's office today. She was photographing the deed to the house and the life insurance policies." Lucas finally looked up. His expression was not one of concern, but of exhaustion. He looked at me as if I were an unruly child who refused to go to sleep. "She told me," Lucas said flatly. "She said she was looking for baby pictures and you cornered her. She said you accused her of being a gold digger. She was not looking for pictures." "Lucas," I hissed. She had the financial binders open, and I found something else. There is a woman named Tia Vance in Nevada who was arrested for fraud. The ages match. The history matches. Lucas let out a heavy sigh, running a hand down his face. "Stop it. Hope, just stop. Do you hear yourself? You are sounding unhinged." Mia told me about her past. She had a difficult childhood. She has some debt from student loans. She has been completely transparent with me. He took a step closer to me, his eyes narrowing. "You are trying to sabotage this because you are jealous," he said, his voice cold and clinical. "You cannot stand that Mom is focusing on the baby. You cannot stand that I am happy. You are inventing conspiracy theories to ruin my life." "I am trying to save your life," I whispered, tears of frustration stinging my eyes. "She is lying to you." "Lucas, enough." He slammed his hand on the counter. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. "If you say one more word about my fiancé, I will kick you out of this house myself. Do you understand me?" I stared at him. This was the brother who used to carry me on his shoulders. This was the brother who taught me how to ride a bike. Now, he was a stranger, possessed by a demon in a cashmere sweater. "I understand," I said quietly. The isolation began the next morning. Mia Vance stopped acknowledging my presence. If I entered a room, she would simply turn and walk away, as if I were a ghost. But her war against the dog escalated from passive neglect to active psychological warfare. I witnessed it on a Tuesday afternoon. I came home early from school because my stomach was in knots. I walked through the back door, which led directly into the mudroom where we kept the laundry machines. Mia Vance was there. She did not hear me come in. She was standing over my dog. Mia, the golden retriever, was lying on her bed in the corner, looking up with wide, fearful eyes. Mia Vance was not hitting her. That would leave marks. That would be evidence. Instead, she was leaning down, her face inches from the dog's snout, whispering, "You are a filthy beast," she hissed. Her voice was low, venomous, stripping away every layer of her fake sweetness. "You smell like rot. Nobody wants you here. You are just waiting to die. Are you not? Why do you not just do us all a favor and stop breathing?" The dog whined, a high-pitched sound of distress, and tried to tuck her head under her paws. Mia Vance reached out and pinched the soft skin of the dog's ear. Hard. "Do not you dare whine," she whispered. I dropped my keys. The metal clattered loudly on the tile floor. Mia Vance spun around. Her eyes went wide. For a second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. But her recovery time was superhuman. Within 2 seconds, she stumbled backward, clutching her chest, and let out a terrified scream. "Help! Lucas! Help me!" I stood frozen, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of her performance. Lucas came thundering down the stairs. "What happened? Are you okay?" She growled at me. Mia Vance sobbed, pointing a shaking finger at the cowering dog. I was just trying to get a towel from the dryer, and she lunged at me. She tried to bite me. "Lucas, look at my hand." She held up her hand. There was nothing there. Maybe a faint redness where she had probably pinched herself. But to Lucas, it was a gaping wound. Lucas looked at the dog, then at me. I did not see it. I shouted, "She is lying. She was pinching the dog's ear." "You are a liar." "Hope," Lucas yelled, his face turning red. I heard her scream. He grabbed the dog by the collar. Mia let out a yelp as he yanked her up. He dragged her across the floor, her claws scrambling uselessly against the tiles. "That is it?" Lucas panted. "I am not taking any more chances." "She goes to the garage, permanently." "No," I screamed, lunging forward. "It is freezing in there." "Lucas, please." He shoved me back. He did not hit me, but the force of his push sent me stumbling into the washing machine. "Stay away from us," he spat. He dragged the dog out the side door and slammed it shut. I heard the lock click. That night, the temperature dropped to 20 degrees. The house was warm. The thermostat was set to 72 degrees because Mia Vance liked it cozy. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind howl outside. Every gust of wind felt like a knife in my chest because I knew my dog was out there, alone. On the concrete floor, I waited until 2 in the morning. I slipped out of bed, put on my heaviest coat, and crept downstairs. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator. I unlocked the side door and slipped into the garage. It was freezing. I could see my breath in the air in white puffs. Mia was curled up in a tight ball inside the metal crate Lucas had set up. She was shivering so violently that the metal cage rattled softly. "Oh, baby," I whispered. Unlocking the crate, she crawled out and buried her head in my chest. Her fur was ice cold. I sat on the floor with her, wrapping my coat around both of us, trying to share my body heat. "I am sorry," I sobbed into her neck. "I am so sorry." I stayed there for an hour, rubbing her cold paws, promising her that I would fix this. I did not know how, but I would fix it. Suddenly, I heard the door to the kitchen open. I froze. I thought it was Lucas coming to check on the prisoner. I held my breath, praying the dog would not make a sound. But no one came into the garage. The person had stepped onto the back porch, just on the other side of the garage wall. The insulation was thin there. I could hear footsteps. Then, the flick of a lighter. Someone was smoking. Mia Vance did not smoke. At least, the Mia Vance who was pregnant with the heir to the Miller fortune did not smoke. Then, I heard a voice. It was her voice, but it was deeper, rougher, stripped of the baby doll affectation she used with my family. She was on the phone. "I need more time. Eddie," she said. Silence. She was listening to the person on the other line. "I know how much I owe," she snapped. "Do not threaten me. I am working on it." The old woman is soft. She is practically begging to give me the money. I just need to get her to sign the transfer for the new house. Silence again. "Yeah, The son is an idiot. She laughed. A dark, throaty sound. He thinks he is saving me. He would sign his own death warrant if I told him it was for the baby. My blood ran cold. I pressed my ear against the freezing drywall. The sister is a problem, though, she continued. Little brat is snooping around. She knows about Nevada. I might need to accelerate the timeline. She took a long drag of the cigarette. I could hear the exhale. Do not worry about the dog. The dog is halfway dead already. Once the dog is gone, the girl will snap, and then I can get rid of her too. She laughed again. Just give me 2 weeks. Eddie, you will get your 50,000 plus interest. I heard the door open and close. She was gone. I sat there in the dark, clutching my freezing dog, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. It was not just about the house. It was not just about the money. She owed $50,000 to someone named Eddie, and she was planning to get rid of me. I realized then that I was not dealing with a mean girl. I was not dealing with a gold digger. I was dealing with a sociopath who had a deadline, and I was the only thing standing between her and my mother's bank account. I looked down at Mia. She had stopped shivering, warmed by my coat. We have to survive. I whispered to her. We have to survive 2 weeks. But as I sat there in the bitter cold, listening to the silence of the garage, I wondered if either of us would make it that long. It was Friday afternoon when the world ended. I walked home from the bus stop with a heavy backpack and a heavier heart. The sky was a bruised purple, threatening snow, and the wind bit at my exposed cheeks. Since the night in the garage, I had been living in a state of hypervigilance. I slept with my door locked. I recorded every conversation I could. I was trying to play the long game, waiting for the woman who called herself Mia Vance to slip up again, to reveal the monster I had heard on the phone with Eddie. But monsters do not wait for you to catch them. They strike when you are looking the other way. I unlocked the front door. The house was quiet, too quiet. Usually, at 3 in the afternoon, the television would be on, or I would hear the hum of the dishwasher. Today, there was only a suffocating silence. I dropped my keys in the bowl. Hello? I called out. 少语警号令. 2 hashes greater than. No answer. A sense of dread, cold and sharp, pierced my stomach. I ran toward the kitchen. The scene that greeted me was not a tableau of domestic life. It was a crime scene. My dog, Mia, was on the kitchen floor. She was not sleeping. She was thrashing. Her legs were paddling the air in a grotesque, rhythmic motion, her claws scraping uselessly against the expensive marble tiles. White foam, tinged with pink, bubbled from her jaws. Her eyes were rolled back in her head, showing only the whites. Mia, I screamed, dropping to my knees beside her. The smell hit me instantly. It was the sickly sweet scent of dark chocolate mixed with the acrid stench of vomit. Scattered around her head were wrappers, gold foil wrappers. I recognized them immediately. They were from the bag of premium 85% dark chocolate baking squares my mother kept on the very top shelf of the pantry for her holiday tortas. Mia Vance was standing by the island. She was clutching a tea towel to her chest, her eyes wide. Oh my God, Hope, she stammered, her voice trembling with a performance-ready vibrato. I do not know what happened. I went to the bathroom for 2 minutes. 手语警号令, 2 hash is greater than just 2 minutes. I must have left the pantry door unlatched. She must have jumped up and knocked them down. I looked at the pantry. The door was open. The shelf was 5 feet off the ground. I looked at my dog, my elderly dog with arthritis in her hips, who groaned when she had to climb the 3 steps to the porch. She cannot jump, I whispered. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, distorted by a rage so pure it felt like lava in my veins. She cannot even climb the stairs without help. Mia Vance took a step back. She shrugged, a tiny, helpless gesture. Well, animals do crazy things when they are hungry, she said. Maybe she is senile. I tried to get it away from her, but she was so aggressive. Sao yu jing hao ling, jing hao da yu, liar. I said, hope, please. She whined, I am shaking. This is not good for the baby. You fed it to her, I said. Standing up, the world narrowed down to a tunnel. All I could see was her face, that perfect, sculpted, deceitful face. I saw the smirk hiding in the corners of her mouth. I saw the triumph in her eyes. She had done exactly what she told Eddie she would do. She was accelerating the timeline. I did not think. I did not weigh the consequences. The civilized part of my brain, the part that cared about laws and social norms, simply shut down. You killed her, I screamed. I launched myself at her. I hit her with the force of a linebacker. We went down hard. Her head cracked against the kitchen cabinets as we fell. A dull, sickening thud. I did not care. I was on top of her, my hands finding her shoulders, shaking her, screaming incoherent curses. You poisoned her, you evil witch. You poisoned her, Mia Vance screamed. It was a high, piercing shriek that sounded like a siren. She clawed at my face, her manicured nails digging furrows into my cheeks. Get off me. My baby. Help. She is killing my baby. She was not protecting her stomach. She was clawing at my eyes. I raised my hand to slap her, to wipe that look of victimhood off her face. Suddenly, I was airborne. Strong hands grabbed the back of my coat and yanked me backward with violent force. I went flying, crashing into the kitchen island. My hip slammed against the granite corner, sending a shockwave of pain down my leg. I slid to the floor, gasping for air. Lucas stood over me. His chest was heaving. His face was purple with rage. He looked like a stranger. He looked like a man capable of murder. Are you insane? He roared. Spittle flew from his mouth. You attacked a pregnant woman. Have you lost your mind? Lucas. She. Sao yu jing hao ling. Jing hao da yu. Shut up, he screamed. He turned to Mia Vance, who was curled up on the floor, sobbing hysterically, clutching her stomach. Oh God. Lucas, she gasped. The baby. Sao yu jing hao ling. 2# is greater than I feel. Sao yu jing hao ling. 2# is greater than I feel cramps. She pushed me. She pushed me right into the cabinets. Lucas knelt beside her, his hands hovering over her, terrified to touch her. I am calling 911. He stammered. No. Mia Vance grabbed his wrist. No, please. Please. I do not want the stress. Just Sao yu jing hao ling. 2# is greater than get her away from me. Get her out. I do not feel safe. Lucas. She is trying to kill us. Lucas stood up and turned back to me. His eyes were cold. Dead things. Get out, he said. I looked at my dog. The seizing had stopped, but Mia was limp now, her breathing shallow and ragged. She was dying. Lucas, please, I begged, pointing at the dog. She poisoned Mia. Look at the chocolate. Look at the shelf. The dog cannot reach that shelf. I do not care about the damn dog, Lucas yelled. You attacked my fiancé. You attacked my child. You are done. Hope, You are done in this house." He marched over to the back door and threw it open. A gust of freezing wind blew into the kitchen, swirling the gold wrappers across the floor. "Get your dog and get out," he said, his voice shaking with restrained violence. "If you are not gone in 2 minutes, I will call the police and I will have you arrested for assault, and I will testify against you." I looked at my mother. I had not even realized she was there. She was standing in the doorway of the dining room, her hands covering her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Mom?" I whispered. She looked at me, then at Lucas, then at Mia Vance, sobbing on the floor. She looked at the dying dog. "Hope, honey," she sobbed. "Just Haling. 2 hash is greater than just go. Please, before it gets worse." She looked away. She chose. In that moment, Evelyn Miller chose the fantasy of a grandchild over the reality of her daughter. I stood up. My hip throbbed. My face was bleeding. My heart was broken into 1,000 jagged pieces. "Fine," I spat. I walked over to Mia. She was heavy. Dead weight. I gathered her into my arms. She weighed 60 pounds, but adrenaline gave me the strength of 10 men. I lifted her up, her head lolling against my shoulder, foam dripping onto my coat. I looked at Mia Vance one last time. She had stopped sobbing for a second to watch me. Over Lucas's shoulder, she met my gaze. She did not look in pain. She looked bored. "I will be back," I said, my voice low and guttural. "And when I come back, I am going to burn your whole world down." Lucas took a step toward me. "Go." I carried my dog out into the winter twilight. I stumbled to my car, a beat-up sedan parked in the driveway. I managed to open the back door and laid Mia gently on the seat. I got into the driver's seat. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the key in the ignition. I looked back at the house. The kitchen light was warm and yellow. It looked like a home. It looked like a place where a family lived, but it was a lie. It was a mausoleum. I slammed the car into reverse and peeled out of the driveway. I did not look back as I sped toward the emergency veterinary clinic, running a red light, listening to the ragged, wet breathing of my best friend in the back seat. Something inside me shifted. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. The girl who wanted to keep the peace, who wanted to save her brother, who wanted her mother's approval, that girl died on the kitchen floor. I reached back and touched Mia's paw. "Hang on," I whispered. "Just hang on." If Mia died, I would not just expose Mia Vance. I would destroy her. I would become exactly what she accused me of being. I would be the villain in her story, and I would enjoy every second of it. The waiting room of the emergency veterinary clinic was a purgatory designed in shades of beige and gray. It smelled of antiseptic, wet four, and suppressed panic. I sat on a hard plastic bench, my knees bouncing with a nervous energy that felt like electricity arcing through my bones. My coat was stained with the frothy saliva of my dying dog. I had been there for 3 hours when I had burst through the sliding glass doors, carrying Mia like a limp sack of flour. The receptionist had taken one look at my face and hit a buzzer under her desk. A team of technicians in blue scrubs had swarmed me, lifting Mia onto a gurney. I had watched them wheel her away, her tail hanging lifelessly off the side, bobbing with the movement of the wheels. That was the last I had seen of her. Now, I was alone. I stared at the television mounted in the corner. It was playing a muted reel of animal care tips. "Keep your pets safe this winter." The text scrolled. "Beware of antifreeze." It did not say anything about beware of sociopathic future sisters-in-law. A door opened. A woman in a white coat walked out. She looked tired. Her name tag read, Dr. Eris. Hope Miller? She called out. I scrambled to my feet. Is she? Xiao Yuting Haoling. 2# is greater than is she alive? Dr. Eris nodded, but her expression remained grim. She is alive, but it is critical. We induced vomiting and administered activated charcoal, but a significant amount of theobromine had already absorbed into her system. Her heart rate is erratic, and her kidneys are taking a hit. She looked down at her clipboard, then back at me. Her gaze was sharp, assessing. She ingested nearly a pound of 85% dark chocolate. Hope, that is a lethal dose for a dog her size. I know, I whispered, tears pricking my eyes. This does not look accidental, the doctor said quietly. Dogs do not usually unwrap 20 individual squares of baking chocolate. There were no wrappers in her stomach vomit, just the chocolate. Someone unwrapped them. I felt a cold shiver pass through me. Mia Vance had been thorough. She had peeled the foil off every single square before feeding them to my dog. It was an execution, not a meal. It was not an accident. I said, my voice shaking. Someone poisoned her. The doctor sighed. I am mandatory reporter for animal cruelty. Hope, I will have to note this in the file. But right now, we need to focus on treatment. She needs 24-hour monitoring, EVE fluids, and cardiac medication. If she survives the night, she will need dialysis. If, I repeated, the word hung in the air like a guillotine. We need to discuss payment. Dr. Eris said gently. Emergency care is expensive. We need a deposit to continue treatment. The estimate for tonight is $3,000. I swallowed hard. $3,000. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet. My hands were trembling so badly, I dropped a receipt on the floor. I pulled out the credit card my mother had given me for emergencies. It was a platinum card, attached to the main family account. It was the card I used for gas, textbooks, and, ironically, vet bills. Use this, I said, handing it to her. Please, just save her. The doctor took the card and walked over to the reception desk. I watched her swipe it. I waited for the beep. Instead, there was a harsh, low buzz. The receptionist frowned. She swiped it again. Buzz. She typed something into the keypad. Dr. Eris walked back to me, handing the card back. It was declined. Hope. The machine says the card has been reported lost or stolen. I stared at the piece of plastic in my hand. It felt heavy, like a stone. Sayudzing Haling. 2. Stolen. My mother had not just cut me off. She had reported the card stolen. That meant if I tried to use it again, I could be flagged for fraud. It was a preemptive strike. Mia Vance must have convinced them that I was spiraling, that I was dangerous, that I would drain the accounts to spite them. Try it again. I pleaded, my voice cracking. Please, it has to be a mistake. It is not a mistake, the receptionist said from behind the desk, her voice lacking sympathy. The issuer has locked the account. Do you have another form of payment? I looked into my wallet. I had $40 in cash and a debit card from my student checking account, which had maybe $200 in it. Sayudzing Haoling. 2# is greater than I need to make a phone call. I stammered. I walked out to the parking lot. The winter air was biting. It slapped my face, waking me up from the nightmare, only to remind me that the reality was worse. I dialed my mother's number. It rang and rang and rang. You have reached Evelyn Miller. Please leave a message. Mom, I screamed into the phone. Mom, pick up. Mia is dying. I need money for the vet. You canceled the card? How could you? Pick up the phone. I hung up and dialed Lucas. It went straight to voicemail. He had blocked me. I stood there in the dark parking lot, under the humming orange street lamp, and realized the terrifying truth. I was 18 years old. I had no job. I had no home. And the only family I had left was dying inside that clinic because I could not pay the ransom. I sank to the pavement, leaning against the tire of my car. I pulled my knees to my chest and sobbed. It was a guttural, ugly sound, ripped from the bottom of my lungs. I cried for my dog. I cried for my father. I cried for the brother I used to have. But tears do not pay bills. After 10 minutes, the tears stopped. A cold numbness took their place. It was a survival mechanism. My brain was shutting down the emotional centers to focus on the logical ones. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I stood up. I reached up to my neck and unclasped the gold locket I had worn every day since I was 15. It was real gold, vintage, with a small diamond in the center. My father had given it to me for my quinceañera. A joke because we are not Hispanic, but he wanted me to have a big party anyway. It was the most valuable thing I owned. I walked back into the clinic. I placed the necklace on the counter. This is 18-karat gold. I said to the receptionist, the diamond is real. It is worth at least $2,000. Take it as collateral. I will get the cash. Just do not stop treating her. The receptionist looked at the necklace, then at me. She softened. We are not a pawn shop. Honey, she said, but so you, Jinghao Ling. 2 hash is greater than I will put a hold on the account for 24 hours. You have until tomorrow evening to bring the cash, or we stop treatment. Thank you, I whispered. I walked back to my car. I had bought time, but time was not enough. I needed to destroy the threat. I sat in the driver's seat and turned on the dome light. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked from when I had thrown it, a spiderweb of glass over the digital display. I opened the browser. I did not have money for a private investigator, but I had rage, and I had the internet. I thought back to the conversation in the garage. Eddie, $50,000, Nevada. I typed in the search bar, Tia Vance, Nevada arrest record. I found the same article as before, but this time, I dug deeper. I went to the county clerk of court's website for Washoe County, Nevada. It was a public database. I searched for criminal records. Vance, Tia Marie, there it was. A list of charges: check fraud, theft by deception, animal cruelty. But then I saw something else. Under the associates or co-defendants section of an older civil lawsuit, there was a name, Edward Moretti. So Yu Jinghao Ling. 2. Eddie. I searched for Edward Moretti. The results were less official, but more illuminating. A forum post on a consumer complaint site listed an Eddie Moretti as a loan shark operating out of a strip mall in Reno, hiding behind a bail bonds business. The post warned people to stay away, claiming he broke kneecaps for late payments. My heart hammered against my ribs. Mia, no, Tia, owed a loan shark $50,000. That was why she was desperate. That was why she needed my mother to sell the house. She needed a chunk of cash to pay off a death threat. I looked at the date of the forum post. It was recent. I needed to confirm it. I needed to know for sure that this was the same Eddie she was talking to. I used a free People Finder website to get the number for Moretti bail bonds in Reno. I looked at the clock. It was 8 in the evening in Connecticut, which meant it was 5 in the afternoon in Nevada. They would still be open. I took a deep breath. I dialed the number. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Moretti Bones. Hi, I said, pitching my voice lower, trying to sound older, tougher. I am calling regarding a mutual acquaintance, Tia Vance. There was a silence on the other end, a heavy, dangerous silence. Who is this? The voice growled. I am Sao Ting Haling. 2# is greater than a friend of hers from Connecticut. I lead. She is worried about the payment. She wanted me to call and confirm that you received her message about the 2-week extension. It was a gamble, a massive, stupid gamble. The man laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. Extension? She is already 2 months late. You tell Tia that if I do not see 50 grand by the 1st of the month, I am not coming for the money anymore. I am coming for her pretty little face. And tell her that hiding in some rich suburb with a new boyfriend does not make her invisible. I know where she is. Sao Ting Haling. Tvo. Click. He hung up. I sat there, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. My hands were shaking, but this time, it was not from fear. It was from adrenaline. Sao Ting Haling. 2# is greater than I had her. She was not just a gold digger. She was a desperate woman on the run from the mob, trying to liquidate my family's assets to save her own skin. And she was willing to kill my dog, and probably me, to do it. My phone pinged. A text message. It was from Lucas. Mom is beside herself. We are listing the house on Monday. Mia says she cannot stay in a place with such negative energy. I hope you are happy. You destroyed this family. I stared at the screen. Listing the house on Monday. Today was Friday. I had 3 days. 3 days before my mother signed a contract that would turn our home into liquid cash for a con artist. I looked at the veterinary clinic where my dog was fighting for her life. I am not the one who destroyed this family. Lucas, I whispered to the empty car, but I am going to be the one who buries the person who did. I started the engine. I had 24 hours to come up with $3,000 for the vet, and 48 hours to stop a real estate transaction. I drove out of the parking lot. I did not go to a friend's house. I did not go to a hotel. I drove to the one place I knew I could find help, a place my father had made me swear never to go. I drove to the dive bar on the edge of town where my father's estranged brother, Uncle Jerry, spent his nights. Jerry was the black sheep. He was a disbarred lawyer with a gambling problem and a hatred for authority. He was the only person in the world who would believe a story this crazy. And right now, crazy was exactly what I needed. Monday morning arrived with the color of bruised slate. The sky was a flat, oppressive gray that pressed down on the rooftops of our neighborhood, promising a storm that was taking its sweet time to arrive. I sat in my car, 2 houses down from my own driveway, watching the activity through a windshield that was slowly fogging up from my breath. It was 10 in the morning. A sleek black sedan was parked in our driveway. It belonged to Patricia Gold, the top real estate agent in the county, a woman who smelled like expensive Chardonnay and could sell a burning building to a snowman. She was there to get the listing agreement signed. She was there to liquidate my father's legacy. I looked at the passenger seat. There was a manila envelope there, thick and heavy. It contained the harvest of a weekend spent in the smoky, dim living room of my Uncle Jerry's apartment. Jerry, the black sheep, the disbarred lawyer, the man my mother called a failure, had been the only one to listen. He had made calls to old friends who owed him favors. He had accessed databases that civilians could not see. He had helped me assemble a weapon made of paper and ink. Are you sure about this, kid? Jerry had asked me this morning as he handed me the envelope. Once you pull this trigger, you cannot put the bullet back in the gun. You might save the money, but you will lose the brother. I had looked him in the eye. I lost him the minute he chose a stranger over his own blood. I picked up the envelope. I got out of the car. My hip still ached from where I had hit the cabinets. A dull throb that served as a metronome for my anger. I walked up the driveway. The house looked perfect. The front porch was swept. The winter wreath on the door was perfectly centered. It was a beautiful lie. I did not use my key. I rang the doorbell. It took a moment. Then, the door opened. Lucas stood there. He looked terrible. His eyes were red-rimmed, his skin sallow. He looked like a man who was drowning and trying to convince himself he was just swimming. When he saw me, his face hardened into a mask of exhaustion and dislike. "What are you doing here, Hope?" he asked, blocking the doorway with his body. "I told you, you are not welcome until you get help. Mom is inside with the realtor. Do not make a scene. I am not here to make a scene." "Lucas," I said. My voice was calm, unnaturally calm. It scared him. He blinked, expecting the screaming teenager from Friday night. Instead, he got an executioner. "I am here to give you a wedding present," I said. I pushed past him. He was too surprised to stop me. I walked down the hallway, my boots thudding heavily on the hardwood. I walked into the dining room. The scene was set like a play. My mother sat at the head of the table, a pen in her trembling hand. Patricia Gold sat to her right, pointing at a line on a document with a manicured fingernail. And there, sitting across from them, sipping a cup of herbal tea, was Mia Vance. She looked radiant. She was wearing a cream-colored maternity dress that highlighted a baby bump that seemed slightly more pronounced than it had been 3 days ago. When she saw me, her smile faltered for a microsecond before she adopted a look of terrified victimhood. "Lucas," she cried out, clutching her chest. "Why is she here? I told you I do not feel safe." Patricia Gold looked up, startled. "Oh, hello? We are just in the middle of some paperwork. Sao yu Jinghao Ling. R. Jinghao Dayu. Get out." "Hope," Lucas said, coming up behind me and grabbing my arm. "I am serious. I am calling the police." "Call them," I said, shaking his hand off. "Actually, please do. It will save me a trip." I walked to the table and threw the manila envelope down. It landed with a heavy slap that made the china teacups rattle. "Do not sign the house over." "Mom," I said, looking at my mother. She looked aged, brittle, like dried parchment. "Hope, please," Mom whispered. "We have to do this. We need a fresh start." "You do not need a fresh start," I said. "You need a reality check." I reached into the envelope and pulled out the first document. It was a printed mugshot. It was grainy, black and white, but the face was unmistakable. The hair was darker, the makeup less refined, but the eyes, those cold, predatory eyes, were identical. "Who is this?" Lucas asked, staring at the photo. "That is your fiancée," I said. "But her name is not Mia Vance. Her name is Tia Vance." The room went silent. The air conditioner hummed. A clock ticked on the wall. Mia Vance, or Tia, let out a laugh. It sounded forced, brittle. "Oh, for God's sake," she scoffed. "This is what you have been doing? Photoshop? This is pathetic." Hope, even for you. Is it? I asked. I pulled out the next document. It was a certified copy of a court docket from Washoe County, Nevada. Tia Marie Vance. I read aloud. Arrested 3 years ago for 20 counts of check fraud, theft by deception, and animal cruelty. You abandoned a sick cat in a dumpster behind a vet clinic because you did not want to pay the bill. Does that sound familiar? Lucas picked up the paper. His hands were shaking. This, Saoyu Haling, 2 hashes greater than this could be anyone. He stammered. It is a common name. I pulled out the next paper. It was a credit report. Is her social security number common? I asked. Because Uncle Jerry ran a background check on the social security number she gave the hospital for her prenatal vitamins. It matches the one on this arrest record. It matches the one attached to $50,000 of gambling debt in Reno. I looked at Tia. She had stopped drinking her tea. Her face had gone very pale, but her eyes were burning with a hatred so intense it felt like physical heat. You are invading my privacy, she hissed. That is illegal. You are trying to sell my mother's house to pay off a loan shark named Eddie Moretti. I countered. I spoke to him. By the way, he says hello. He says if he does not get his money by the 1st of the month, he is coming for your pretty face. My mother gasped. Patricia Gold began to slowly gather her papers, sensing that the commission on this sale was evaporating. This is ridiculous, Tia said. Standing up, her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Lucas, are you going to let her talk to me like this? She is lying. She is a jealous, mentally unstable child who is trying to ruin our happiness. I changed my name because of an abusive ex-boyfriend. I was hiding from him. Oh, stop it. I snapped. I turned to Lucas. Think about it. Lucas, the dinner, the first night she came here. What was the one thing she asked for? She wanted to change the dog's name to Tia. I pointed at the woman standing across the table. Why would she do that? Why would a woman named Mia want a dog named Tia? Because it was a joke. Lucas, a sick, inside joke. Her name is Tia. She wanted you to call the dog by her real name while she pranced around using a fake one. She wanted to hear you commanding the dog, scolding the dog, using her name while she laughed at you behind your back. It was a power trip. She was mocking us to our faces. Lucas looked at Tia. He looked at the mugshot. He looked back at Tia. The gears in his head were grinding, trying to reconcile the woman he loved with the facts on the table. Is it true? He whispered. Is your name Tia? Tia stared at him. The silence stretched, thin and tight as a wire. Then she dropped the act. It happened all at once. Her shoulders slumped, her face relaxed, losing the wide-eyed innocence and settling into a sneer of utter contempt. She picked up the teacup and threw it against the wall. Xiaoyu Haoling. 2 hash is greater than smash. Porcelain shattered. Tea splashed onto the expensive wallpaper. Patricia Gold shrieked and clutched her briefcase. So what if it is? She screamed. Her voice was unrecognizable. It was guttural, a raw, the voice of a cornered animal. So what if my name is Tia? Do you have any idea how hard I have worked? Do you have any idea what I have had to do to survive? She turned on Lucas, jabbing a finger into his chest. You pathetic, spineless little boy. She spat. You think I wanted to marry you? You are boring. You are weak. You are a mama's boy who cannot make a decision without asking these 2 harpies first. Tia, Lucas gasped, stepping back, the baby. Saoyu Haoling. R. Jinghao. Dayu. There is no baby, she shrieked. She grabbed the hem of her sweater and yanked it up. Underneath was a padded foam prosthetic, strapped around her waist with Velcro. She ripped the Velcro open and threw the foam belly onto the dining table. It landed on top of the deed to the house. "It is foam, you idiot," she laughed, a manic, hysterical sound. "I bought it on Amazon for $40. My mother let out a wail of pure anguish and slumped forward in her chair, burying her face in her hands. Lucas stood frozen, staring at the foam belly. His world was collapsing in real time. The nursery, the names, the future he had built in his head. It was all styrofoam and lies. "You, Sao Ting Holing, 2 hashes greater than you lied," Lucas whispered. "Of course I lied," Tia screamed. "I needed money. I have a guy in Reno who wants to break my legs. And I found you. The perfect mark. Rich mommy, dead daddy, gullible son. It was supposed to be easy. Get the ring, sell the house, cash out, and disappear before the miscarriage." She turned her gaze to me. Her eyes were black pits of malice. "But you," she snarled, "you and that damn dog, you just would not die. Would you?" I stepped forward. I was not afraid of her anymore. I looked at her with cold, clinical detachment. "So you admit it?" I said. "You poisoned Mia." Tia laughed. "Admit it? I am proud of it. That beast knew. Every time I walked in the room, it watched me. It growled. It knew I was a fraud. I fed it chocolate piece by piece, hoping it would croak right there on the floor. And I would do it again." She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the center of the table. "I should have poisoned you too," she screamed, raising the vase. Lucas moved. For the first time in his life, my brother moved with purpose. He lunged forward and grabbed her wrist just as she was about to bring the vase down on my head. "Drop it," he roared. He twisted her arm. She dropped the vase. It hit the table and rolled off, shattering on the floor. "Get out of my house," Lucas said. His voice was shaking, but it was low and dangerous. Tia wrenched her arm free. She looked around the room. She saw the realtor staring at her in horror. She saw my mother weeping. She saw me, standing calm and victorious. She realized the game was over. The con had imploded. "Fine," she spat. "Keep your house. Keep your pathetic lives. Eddie will find me, but I will find someone else. There is always another idiot. Always." She grabbed her purse. She marched toward the door. "One more thing," I said. She stopped in the doorway, turning back with a snarl. "What?" I pointed to the window. 2 police cruisers had just pulled into the driveway, lights flashing silently. "I did not just call Uncle Jerry," I said. "I called Detective Miller. No relation, ironically, but he was very interested in the outstanding warrant from Nevada. And the confession you just made about the animal cruelty? Well, Patricia, here's a witness." Patricia Gold nodded vigorously. "I certainly am." Tia's face went white. She looked at the back door, then the front. She was trapped. "You little bitch," she whispered. The doorbell rang. I walked past her, brushing my shoulder against hers. I opened the front door. 2 officers stood there. "She is in the dining room." "Officers," I said. "Her name is Tia Vance. And watch out. She bites." As the officers walked past me to cuff her, as she started screaming obscenities and kicking at the antique furniture, I felt no joy. I felt no triumph. I just felt a cold, hollow exhaustion. I looked at Lucas. He was sinking into a chair, staring at the foam belly on the table as if it were a dead body. My mother was hyperventilating, The house was saved. The money was safe. But as I looked at the wreckage of my family, at the shards of crystal and the stained wallpaper, I knew that some things could never be fixed. I walked out to the porch and sat on the steps. I pulled out my phone. I had a text from the vet clinic. Mia is awake. She is asking for you. I closed my eyes, and finally, for the first time in 3 days, I let myself breathe. Scandals in the suburbs do not explode like bombs. They seep like groundwater, saturating everything until the foundation rots. The arrest of Tia Vance, formerly known as the Immaculate Mia, was the kind of event that turned our cul-de-sac into a spectator sport. The police dragged her out of the house in handcuffs. She did not go quietly. She was screaming, a raw, feral sound that echoed off the manicured lawns and brick facades of our neighbors' homes. She kicked one of the officers in the shin. She spat at Patricia Gold, the real estate agent, who was clutching her pearls and watching from the safety of her Mercedes. I stood on the porch, watching. Mistress Higgins from next door was peering through her blinds. The mailman had stopped his truck to watch. A jogger had paused, taking out his phone to record. "This is all your fault," Tia shrieked as they shoved her into the back of the cruiser. She locked eyes with me through the window glass. "You ruined everything, you miserable little brat." The cruiser pulled away. The silence that rushed in to fill the void was deafening. I walked back inside. The house felt violated. The air was thick with the lingering scent of her perfume and the palpable residue of her rage. In the dining room, my mother was still weeping. It was a low, keening sound, the sound of a woman mourning a grandchild who never existed. Lucas was sitting at the table, staring at the foam belly. He had not moved. He looked catatonic. I picked up the foam prosthetic. It was light, cheap, covered in beige fabric. It was a prop, a $40 prop that had almost cost us everything. I walked to the kitchen, opened the trash can, and threw it in. "I am going to the vet," I said to the room at large. Neither of them answered. The next few days were a blur of humiliation. The story hit the local news cycle within 24 hours. Local woman arrested for fraud and animal cruelty in wealthy enclave. The mugshot, the new one, where her mascara was smeared and her hair was wild, was plastered on every Facebook community page. The comments section was brutal. I knew she looked fake. One neighbor wrote, "Poor family. Imagine falling for that." Wrote another, "The brother must be an idiot. How do you not know your fiancé is wearing a fake belly?" I tried to shield Lucas from it, but he saw it. He spent his days in his room with the curtains drawn, scrolling through the mockery on his phone. He stopped going to work. He stopped eating. He became a ghost in his own house. My mother was different. She went into damage control mode. She hired a cleaning crew to scrub the house from top to bottom, as if she could bleach away the memory of Tia Vance. She threw out the new furniture Tia had bought. She burned the sage green paint swatches for the nursery in the fireplace, but she could not scrub away the shame. When she went to the grocery store, people whispered. When she went to church, the other ladies gave her pitying looks that were sharper than insults. Poor Evelyn, so desperate for a grandbaby, she let a wolf in the door. I spent my time at the vet clinic. Mia was alive, but she was not the same. The toxins had ravaged her kidneys. She had lost weight. Her coat, once lustrous, was dull and brittle. She walked with a slow, pained gait, and she tired easily. When I finally brought her home, 3 days after the arrest, the homecoming was somber. I carried her into the house. I set her bed back in its rightful place in the living room, near the fireplace. Lucas came downstairs. He looked at the dog. He looked at me. I, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling, too. I am sorry, he croaked. His voice was rusty from disuse. I looked at him. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to hug him and say it was okay, that we were victims, that she had fooled us all. But the image of him pushing me into the cabinets, of him locking Mia in the freezing garage, was burned in my retinas. She almost died. Lucas, I said quietly, you let her poison our dog because you were too busy playing house with a criminal. I did not know, he whispered, tears tracking through the stubble on his cheeks. I swear. Hope, I did not know. You did not want to know. I corrected him. There is a difference. I turned my back on him and sat down next to Mia, stroking her head. Lucas stood there for a long moment, waiting for absolution that I could not give. Then, he turned and walked back upstairs to his room. The legal fallout began a week later. Detectives came to the house to take statements. We had to itemize everything she had stolen or destroyed. We had to hand over bank records. We found out the extent of the damage. Tia had opened 3 credit cards in Lucas's name. She had pawned my mother's diamond earrings, the ones Mom thought were just lost. She had been siphoning cash from the joint account for months. Small amounts that added up to thousands. And then there was the letter from Eddie Moretti. It arrived 2 weeks later, addressed to Tia Vance. I intercepted it. I opened it. It was a single sheet of paper with a photo of Tia walking into our house. On the back, written in Sharpie, "Time's up." I handed it to the police. They told us that Tia was being extradited to Nevada to face charges there first, as the warrant predated her crimes here. She would likely spend the next 10 years in prison. Eddie Moretti would not get his money, but he would probably find a way to get to her in prison. I felt a cold, dark satisfaction at the thought. But satisfaction is not healing. The community moved on, as they always do. The scandal faded. A new family had a messy divorce, or someone's kid got arrested for DUI. And the gossip spotlight shifted, but inside our house, the silence remained. We were 3 people living in the wreckage of a family. We ate dinner in silence. We avoided eye contact. The trust that binds a family together had been severed. Lucas looked at me like I was a stranger he owed money to. My mother looked at me like I was a reminder of her foolishness. And I looked at them and saw 2 people who would have sold me out for a lie. The only pure thing left in that house was the dog sleeping by the fire. And even she flinched now when someone moved too fast. We had survived. The house was ours. The money was safe. But as I walked through the silent hallways, I realized that Tia Vance had achieved her goal after all. She had destroyed us. She just did not get paid for it. Winter thawed into a wet, gray spring. The snow melted, revealing the brown, dead grass underneath, much like the truth had revealed the barren landscape of our family life. The legal battles were over. Tia Vance, or inmate number 48209 in the Nevada Department of Corrections, was gone. She had pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. A final act of self-preservation, but the ghost of her remained. It lingered in the way my mother flinched whenever the phone rang. It lingered in the way Lucas checked the locks on the doors 3 times a night. And it lingered in the empty space where my brother's dignity used to be. Lucas went back to work, but he was a shell of himself. The swagger was gone. The confidence was gone. He walked with his shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, like a dog that had been kicked too many times. He stopped dating. He stopped going out with friends. He came home, ate dinner in silence, and went to his room. One evening in April, I found him in the garage. He was standing in front of the metal crate where he had forced Mia to sleep. He was holding a screwdriver. He was taking the crate apart, piece by piece. His hands were shaking. He struggled with a rusted screw, grunting with effort. "Need help?" I asked from the doorway. He froze. He did not look at me. "No," he said, his voice thick. "I got it." I watched him for a moment. He looked older. He had gray hairs at his temples that had not been there 6 months ago. "I am sorry, Lucas," I said. He dropped the screwdriver. It clattered loudly on the concrete floor. He turned to face me, his eyes wet with unshed tears. "Why are you sorry?" he asked, a bitter edge to his voice. "You were right. You were right about everything. The name, the baby, the money. You were the hero. Hope, I was the villain. I did not feel like a hero. I felt tired. I am sorry that you had to find out that way," I said. "I am sorry she used you." Lucas let out a harsh laugh. "She did not just use me. Hope, she hollowed me out. Do you know what it feels like to realize that the happiest months of your life were a performance? That every "I love you" was just a calculation?" He kicked the metal panel of the crate. "I put this here," he whispered, looking at the cage. "I put her in here. I listened to Tia tell me that the dog was dangerous, and I believed her. I looked at Mia, a dog I raised, and I saw a monster because Tia told me to." He looked up at me, his expression haunted. "How do I trust my own mind again?" he asked. "If I could be that wrong about someone. 少于金浩灵, 2 hashes greater than how do I know I am not wrong about everything else?" I did not have an answer for him, because I wondered the same thing. I wondered if I would ever trust anyone again, if a stranger could walk into our lives and dismantle us so easily. How fragile were we to begin with? I walked over and picked up the screwdriver. "Let us get this out of here," I said. We spent the next hour dismantling the cage in silence. When we were done, we hauled the metal pieces to the curb for the trash collectors. It felt like burying a body. Inside the house, Mia the dog was declining. The kidney damage was progressive. She needed subcutaneous fluids every other day. I learned how to insert the needle under the loose skin of her shoulders, how to hang the bag of saline from a coat hook, how to soothe her while the cool liquid flowed into her body. My mother tried to help once. She stood in the doorway, wringing her hands. "Can I get you a towel?" she asked timidly. "No," I said, not looking up from the needle. "We are fine." Mom flinched as if I had slapped her. "Hope," she said, her voice trembling. "I know you are angry, but please, 少于金浩灵, 2 hashes greater than, do not shut me out. I am your mother. You are the woman who reported my credit card stolen when I was trying to save her life," I said, keeping my voice even. Mom let out a sob. "I was scared. Tia told me you were having a breakdown. She said you were going to drain the account and run away. And you believed her," I said. "Over me. Over 18 years of knowing me. You believed a woman you had known for 3 months." I looked up at her then. "That is the part I cannot fix. Mom, I can pay the vet bills. I can fix the house, but I cannot fix the fact that when it came down to it, you did not know me at all." Mom covered her face and wept. I went back to tending the dog. That night, Mia had a seizure. It was small, just a trembling of her limbs and a glazing over of her eyes. But it was a reminder. The clock was ticking. The poison had done its work. We had bought time. but we had not bought a miracle. I sat on the floor with her head in my lap, stroking her velvet ears. The house was asleep. The silence was absolute. I looked around the living room. The expensive furniture, the heavy curtains, the family portraits on the mantle where everyone was smiling a lie. I realized then that I could not stay here. This house was a museum of our failures. Every room held a memory of Tia Vance. The kitchen where I tackled her, the dining room where she threw the vase, the office where she stole our secrets. I needed to leave. I needed to find a place where the air did not taste like betrayal. I looked down at Mia. We are getting out of here. Girl, I whispered, just you and me. She thumped her tail once, weak but steady. A promise. I pulled out my phone and opened my college acceptance emails. I had ignored them for months, too consumed by the war. There was one from a university in Vermont. It was far enough away to be a fresh start, but close enough to drive home if Saotinghao Ling. 2 hashes greater than well. If I ever wanted to, I clicked accept. Then I opened a rental app. I searched for pet-friendly apartments near the campus. I found a small studio with a patch of grass in the back. It was tiny. It was cheap. It was perfect. I booked a viewing for the next weekend. I was leaving. I was taking the dog, and I was leaving the ghosts of the Miller family behind to haunt each other. 6 months later, the air in Vermont tasted like pine needles and freedom. I sat on the wooden porch of my small rental house, a mug of coffee warming my hands. The morning mist was lifting off the green mountains in the distance, revealing a tapestry of autumn colors that burned orange and red against the blue sky. It was quiet here, a real quiet, not the loaded silence of the Miller household. Mia lay at my feet. She was thinner now, her hip bones prominent under her fur, and she moved with the stiffness of an old woman. But she was alive. She was breathing the clean mountain air, watching a squirrel dart across the lawn with mild, detached interest. She had survived. We both had. My phone buzzed on the porch railing. It was a text from my mother. Thinking of you, honey. Hope classes are going well. Lucas got a promotion at work. We miss you. Love. Mom. I looked at the message. I did not feel anger anymore. The rage that had fueled me through the winter had burned itself out, leaving behind a residue of dull ache. I did not hate them. I just Saotinghao Ling. 2 hashes greater than did not need them. I typed back, thanks. Mom, glad to hear about Lucas. Give him my best. I hit send. It was polite. It was distant. It was the text you send to an acquaintance. Not a mother. I put the phone down. A car pulled into the gravel driveway. It was the mobile vet. Dr. Lewis, a kind man with a gray beard and gentle hands, stepped out of his van. Morning. Hope, he called out softly. Morning, Dr. Lewis. I said, standing up. He walked up the steps, carrying his bag. He looked at Mia. She thumped her tail, greeting him. She knew him well by now. How is she doing? He asked, kneeling beside her to check her gums. She had a good week, I said. She ate all her meals, but Saotinghao Ling, 2 hashes greater than she struggled to get up this morning. And she is drinking a lot of water. Dr. Lewis nodded. He ran his hands over her kidneys. He listened to her heart. He stood up and looked at me. His eyes were kind, but they held the truth I had been dreading. Her numbers from the blood draw last week were not good. Hope. The renal failure is advancing. We can keep doing fluids. Keep managing the pain. Saotinghao Ling. 2 hash is greater than, but we are approaching the point where quality of life becomes the question. I looked down at my dog. She was resting her chin on her paws, looking at me with those soulful, amber eyes. She looked tired, not just sleepy, but soul tired. I know, I whispered. I am not saying today, Dr. Lewis said gently, but soon, before the winter sets in. I nodded. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Okay, I said, I understand. He gave me a refill on her pain medication and left. I sat back down next to Mia. I ran my hand down her spine, feeling every vertebra. We won. I told her softly, we beat the bad lady. We kept the house. We kept your name. She let out a long sigh, leaning her weight against my leg. But as I looked out at the mountains, I realized that winning did not feel like victory. It felt like survival. I had saved my family's fortune. I had exposed a criminal. But in the process, I had learned a truth about human nature that I could not unlearn. I learned that love is fragile and fear is powerful. I learned that people will believe a beautiful lie over an ugly truth because it is easier. Lucas was safe, but he was broken. My mother was secure, but she was lonely. And I was independent, but I was solitary. I thought about Tia Vance sitting in a cell in Nevada. I wondered if she felt remorse. Probably not. People like her do not feel guilt. They only feel regret for getting caught. She was probably already planning her next con, charming a guard, spinning a new web. But she would never have a dog like Mia. She would never know what it felt like to have a creature love you so completely that it would forgive you for the sins of your species. I leaned down and kissed the top of Mia's head. She smelled like cedar and old age. You are a good girl. Mia, I whispered, the best girl. She licked my hand, her tongue rough and dry. I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold. I looked at the text from my mother again. We miss you. Maybe one day I would go back. Maybe one day the cracks would heal enough for us to be a family again. But not today, and not tomorrow. For now, my family was right here, lying at my feet on a porch in Vermont. I took a sip of the cold coffee. It was bitter. We kept the name, I said to the empty air, but we lost the family. Mia closed her eyes and drifted to sleep in the sun. I watched her breathe, counting the rise and fall of her ribs, cherishing every single one.